blood money.
'79 was the year when things began to get really serious.
But certainly dadeland really was the one, the defining moment. First public shot in the cocaine wars.
The shootout occurred at about 2:30 this afternoon when 2 or more Latin males entered the Crown Liquor Store here on the west end of the Dadeland Mall. They were followed by 2 or 3 other Latin males, and then the shooting began.
I mean, we knew exactly the minute we heard that. It was another Colombian drug-related machine gun.
Right now, 2 people are dead, and there are others injured.
Inside the liquor store, 1 Colombian national and another non-Cuban Latin suspected of drug trafficking lay face up in a pool of blood.
And I went racing down there, and I said, I'm from the Miami Herald, you know, what happened here? And the cops were just shocked and askance.
I have never seen in my life an extensive amount of, how would you put it?
Well, July 1979, I had been in homicide about 2 years, but this was just beyond the scope of anything anybody could have imagined it up until that date.
Well, there was just glass, debris all over the place. There were bullet casings on the wall, on the floor, on the shelf. It just looked like a old Western shootout.
The assailants sprayed gunfire all around the parking lot.
Did you see what happened to them when the shooting was over?
They ran.
Where?
I don't know. I was running.
Innocent bystanders dove for cover. Cars were riddled with machine gun fire, gas tanks spilling out.
Actually, there were 2 scenes. There were the primary scene where the 2 dead bodies were inside Crown Liquors. But the secondary scene, which is where I was assigned to, was what has become known as the War Wagon.
A delivery van was found abandoned in the north side of the mall with the door open and the motor running.
It was a 1979 brand new Ford Econoline van converted into an armed personnel carrier.
It was just a death machine.
It had reinforced steel welded to the sides. Windows could be popped out, used as gun ports.
You know, it's a Happy Time party supply on the side.
Inside, we found 14 different weapons.
These killers were like the Dixie Cup generation, the throwaway generation. They would shoot a gun until it was empty, throw it down, and pick up another one.
And you name it. Shotguns, carbines, a MAC-10, an Uzi, assorted handguns, ammunition for all of them.
The War Wagon was really, I think, the big turning point where the police realized what they were up against and how outgunned they were.
What would the amount of weaponry in that van indicate to you?
Well, they were well armed, we can say that, and they came prepared to do battle.
Bullets were flying everywhere.
The final tally were that 86 rounds had been fired by all the weapons.
God knows, I don't know how many times these people were shot. There's just so many bullet wounds over these victims that it just made it impossible for me to determine the exact number of shots.
We did the standard follow-up leads. The truck had been falsely registered. The firearms had been bought under false names. You went to the addresses, and the ones that were good, the people had fled. So it was your typical Colombian case, went nowhere fast.
Officers searched the surrounding neighborhood for more than an hour, but turned up no suspects.
Like I said, another open pending. Open pending means an unsolved case because we had had no success whatsoever to date closing a Colombian murder. We had a brand new phenomenon here. The level of violence was unprecedented. The sophistication was unprecedented. I think this was the first case where we had actually a machine gunning in a public place, middle of daylight, shoppers and passers-by around. Of course, after that happened frequently.
It was the beginning of a war, the cocaine wars down here.
Local homicide detectives say Miami's in the middle of a narcotics war between Colombian and Cuban drug dealers.
Miami was changing. The Colombians were pushing the Cubans out. There was a mad scramble for market share.
And one of the reasons for the violence was because of the competing factions.
And the violence is what turned Miami into the cocaine cowboys, as they called them, the cocaine cowboys.
They called them the cocaine cowboys.
This cocaine cowboy thing, it was sold people from Medellin.
Estimates are that as many as 100,000 illegal Colombian aliens are living and working the drug trade in South Florida.
They would go after their target. They'd kill the wife. They'd kill the maid.
If there's a dog, they all kill the dog. If there's a bird, they all kill the bird. If there's goldfish, they all kill the goldfish.
If a Girl Scout rang the bell to sell cookies, they killed the Girl Scout too.
Poor people that were standing there and kids, anybody would just get chopped up.
They just would kill everybody in sight.
Jesus Hernandez, A submachine barrage tore him apart in his car on a busy southwest street at noon.
Numerous machine gunnings.
And then I heard the ba-boom, ba-boom, pop, 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 pop. And the apartment was sprayed by machine gun fire, a trademark, according to police, of the Cocaine Cowboys.
On the highways, the Turnpike, US 1, in some cases residential streets.
The red Mustang was heading north on Southwest 107th Avenue. The green sedan pulled alongside the driver, opening fire.
The tools of death, automatic weapons, and shotguns.
That's the kind of stuff you see on television. You don't see it in real life.
Witnesses described the scene as a war zone, Miami Vice without the cameras.
But this was real life. It was really going on.
You have 5 people killed here. You have 3 people killed here.
A quiet residential area in Kendall tonight became the scene of a grisly mass murder. 6 bodies were found in a posh townhouse.
Miami police say this is the worst multiple homicide in the city's history.
Police believe the massacre was drug-related.
We're talking about mass murders that in this day and age would get breaking news coverage from all the cable TV stations. We had that level of violence happening daily, and the local media, because of us just being saturated by it, saying, oh, it's just a double homicide, oh, it's just a triple homicide.
It just became commonplace that we were going to be jumping from crime scene to crime scene.
We have to have more than 4 or 5 people dead to make a big deal out of it.
I mean, I can recall getting 5 murders in one night.
There have been 8 murders in Dade in just the past 48 hours.
You never knew when you were going to stumble over another body.
Miami kind of resembled the St. Valentine's Day massacre in Chicago in the 20s.
Gangsters driving through the streets, standing on their floorboards with their Thompson 45 machine guns, having gunfights in Chicago in the 30s.
What I see going on here would make Chicago in the days of Prohibition look like a Baptist Sunday school picnic.
And one of the cops then even said, like Dodge City.
It was like the Wild Wild West back here.
But of course he was wrong, because Dodge City was never as violent as Miami was then.
Miami in the early 80s was considered the most dangerous place on earth.
It's an upscale clothing outlet. But in 1979, what happens in this spot signals a new era in organized crime that will last nearly 20 years. It's Wednesday, July 11th, 1979. The sudden burst of gunfire shatters a sultry afternoon.
The shootout occurred at about 2:30 this afternoon when 2 or more Latin males entered the Crown Liquor Store here on the west end of the Dadeland Mall. They were followed by 2 or 3 other Latin males, and then the shooting began.
They came prepared to do battle.
2 men lie dead on the liquor store floor. But what happens next is off the radar of organized crime in Miami. The hitmen exit the liquor store and turn their guns on the public.
I can recall hearing the call being dispatched as a machine gunning in the Dadeland shopping mall.
Detective Al Singleton is one of the first cops to arrive on the scene. The gunmen have fled, but they have left behind a scene of carnage.
Even the veterans were shocked by what they saw that day.
Whoever's behind it, it's not the Mafia. The Mafia are not active in Miami, but even if they were, shooting civilians is not their style.
We were used to organized crime hits. They weren't that often in Miami, but they did occur. But in those cases, if there was an intended target, that person would be selectively chosen and killed, and that would be it. You wouldn't just indiscriminately kill witnesses that would just happen to be at the wrong place at the wrong time.
And then the cops make another discovery. The killers used this customized armored war wagon.
The getaway van was then dumped in the mall's north parking lot. Inside were several rifles, pistols, and shotguns, some ammunition, and flak vests.
They used this 1978 Ford Econoline van, and then had been reinforced with stainless steel to make it bulletproof.
With 2 dead, 2 wounded, and a SWAT-style mobile arsenal, the media begin to call it the Dadeland Mall Massacre. Miami has never seen anything like it. But it's only the start of a terrifying decade.
Dadeland set the mark. We had never encountered any kind of violence like that.
In the face of the killer's firepower, the cops begin to upgrade their own weaponry.
When you recover 14 weapons used by contract killers, you realize that the standard issue Police 38 was a poor countermeasure to that kind of firepower. So